In the quiet city of Hanrim, where winter mornings carried a thin mist across the old bridges, two students grew up believing that hard work and kindness could fix almost anything. Minjae and Lian had met not through fate or dramatic coincidence, but through a simple school project that required cooperation, patience, and honesty. Over the years, they became the kind of friends who understood each other without needing long explanations. Their bond never relied on dramatic gestures or picture-perfect moments. It grew slowly, shaped by shared struggles, quiet conversations, and trust. But life, as always, tested people when they least expected it. Minjae came from a family that believed excellence was the only acceptable outcome. His father, a respected engineer, carried expectations like weapons, direct, unquestionable. Minjae's mother, gentle but tired, always asked him to avoid mistakes and avoid anything that might make the family look imperfect. As a result, Minjae learned to keep his worries inside. If he felt overwhelmed, he simply worked harder. If he felt afraid, he pretended he wasn't. If he felt alone, he convinced himself he didn't need anyone. Leon, on the other hand, grew up surrounded by noise and warmth. Her grandmother ran a small herbal store known more for kindness than profit. Her house was always full of neighbors asking for advice, children asking for snacks, and elders asking for help with small errands. Leon grew up believing that every person deserved a chance to begin again, no matter how complicated their mistakes were. She believed in forgiving people not because they deserved it, but because healing required compassion. Despite their differences, they balanced each other perfectly. Minjae learned patience from Leon. Leon learned discipline from Minjae. Their friendship wasn't dramatic, it was simply reliable. But the final year of school changed everything. Minjae, suffocated by pressure, had begun withdrawing from everyone. He spent nights awake solving equations he already knew how to solve, rewriting notes he didn't need to rewrite, and hiding his fears behind a wall that even Leon couldn't climb. When teachers praised him, he smiled politely. When classmates envied him, he pretended not to notice. When Leon asked if he was okay, he answered too quickly, as if the truth might inconvenience her. Leon, noticing the shift, tried to help gently. She didn't ask demanding questions. She simply offered small reminders that she was present. But Minjae interpreted her concern as pity, and pity was something he couldn't accept. Eventually, he started avoiding her, not because he stopped valuing the friendship, but because he felt ashamed of his inability to maintain the strength everyone expected from him. The breaking point during the academic evaluation ceremony, a misunderstanding, small, unintentional, and avoidable, spiraled into something bigger. A wrongly submitted file, a teacher's assumption, and the heavy pressure of being the top student placed Minjae under scrutiny. Instead of explaining, instead of saying he made a mistake, he stayed silent. And when the teacher questioned how the file was misplaced, Minjae reacted defensively. In the moment of panic, his words slipped in a direction he couldn't take back. He said Lion had been helping him with his documents, even though she wasn't involved at all. Lion, shocked, stared at him with confusion that quickly turned into hurt. She didn't argue, she didn't defend herself. She simply stepped back, feeling the weight of betrayal from someone she trusted deeply. Her disappointment wasn't loud, but the silence between them grew heavier than any conflict. For weeks, they barely spoke. Minjae wanted to apologize, but guilt wrapped around him like iron chains. He didn't know how to approach Leon without sounding insincere. Leon wasn't angry, just quietly wounded. She wasn't the type to shout or blame, but she also couldn't pretend the betrayal didn't affect her. She focused on her studies, helped at the herbal shop, and carried on like everything was normal, even though something had undeniably changed. The city entered spring while their friendship remained frozen. One afternoon, Minjae decided he couldn't stay silent anymore. After all, if someone asked whether everything could be made right again, the answer depended on courage, not time. He walked to Leon's grandmother's store with a folded note in his pocket. He had rewritten it dozens of times, each version more honest than the last. But when he reached the shop, his confidence weakened. Lion stood behind herbs into little envelopes. She looked calm, the same as always, but her smile when she saw him was polite instead of familiar. Minjae almost turned around, but Lion quietly said, "You can come in." Her voice wasn't distant, but it wasn't warm either. It was careful. Minjae stepped inside, realizing how comforting the store had always been. The scent of dried ginger, mint, and warm tea always made him feel grounded. Today, however, even the familiar scent couldn't calm his nervousness. "I wanted to talk," he managed to say. Leon nodded slowly. "I know." She didn't ask him to explain. She didn't ask him to justify anything. She simply waited. And Minjae realized that sometimes silence wasn't cold. It was space for truth. Minjae said, his voice steady but soft. "Not just that day, but even before it. I let pressure turn into fear, and I let fear control my choices. I shouldn't have used your name. I shouldn't have dragged you into something you weren't part of. And even before that day, I pushed you away. I didn't trust you with the truth, and I didn't trust myself enough to handle everything." He paused, uncertain. "I didn't expect you to forgive me," he continued. "But I want you to know that I regret every part of it." Alian didn't react immediately. She looked at him with the same calm expression she used when listening to long stories from elders. Finally, she said, I wasn't hurt because you made a mistake. I was hurt because you didn't trust me enough to tell me what was going on. You've always helped others. You've always tried to be strong alone. But strength doesn't mean shutting people out. She didn't sound angry. She sounded honest. I thought you didn't need me anymore, she added quietly. Min-jae shook his head. I didn't know how to need anyone. I thought if I admitted I was struggling, everything around me would collapse. And instead, Layan said gently, your silence made things collapse anyway. They stood in the soft afternoon light. Neither raised their voice. Neither blamed the other. It was simply the truth laid out calmly, without drama. Min-jae took a deep breath. Can we both make everything right? It wasn't a demand. It wasn't an attempt to erase the past. It was a genuine question, a request for cooperation, not forgiveness. Lian didn't answer immediately. She walked to the shelves, finished tying the last herb packet, and set it aside. Then she said yes. But making things right doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means rebuilding slowly with honesty. If you're willing to do that, I am too. Min-jae felt relief, not dramatic but deep and grounding. Not because everything was solved instantly, but because they had finally taken the first step toward healing. Over the next weeks, their conversations became more natural. The distance faded slowly, replaced not by their old dynamic but by something more mature. They learned to communicate better. Min-jae learned to share his worries instead of hiding them. Lian learned to speak up when something bothered her instead of staying silent. Their friendship didn't return to what it was. It became better. During exam season, Min-jae no longer studied alone until dawn. He visited the herbal shop where Lian's grandmother would offer tea that supposedly calmed the mind. Lian helped him create a study schedule that balanced discipline and rest. In return, Min-jae helped Lian with her math practice, explaining each problem with patience he didn't know he had. Slowly, the people around them noticed the change. Not because they acted dramatically close, but because their quiet understanding returned. The day results were announced, Min-jae wasn't the top student. For the first time in his life, he wasn't number one. But instead of panic, he felt something unexpected, freedom. He realized the world didn't collapse, and neither did he. Lian found him standing beneath the old cherry blossom tree outside school. The petals were falling lightly, turning the ground into a soft pink carpet. Are you okay? She asked. Yes, Min-jae said, genuinely meaning it. For the first time, I think I really am. Bai Lian smiled, a real smile, warm and familiar. Then we really did make everything right. We did it, and we'll keep doing it even when things get difficult. Their story didn't end with dramatic music or perfect resolutions. Instead, it continued with quiet promises, shared understanding, and a renewed friendship built on honesty and growth. Because making things right wasn't a one-time act, it was a journey. And they were ready to walk it together, not out of obligation, but out of trust.